Starting a business could potentially be one of the hardest things that you ever do in life. What's harder? Closing two businesses. And that's exactly what Lisa McNeil of Trifecta Consulting did. It's episode 70 of the 1004 show. We're going to talk to Lisa about making that decision of having to close a business and then actually having to do it twice. It's episode 70 of the 1004 show. Lisa McNeil, Trifecta Consulting. What do you do if you have to close a business? What happens if you start another one and you have to close that too? Tell me something about you that most people don't know about.
I'm a grandma.
A grandma. When you became a grandma, did you neglect your kids more than your grandkids?
Actually, no.
Because I don't have kids yet, but when my sister had a kid, my mom basically just threw in the towel on me and only cared about being a grandma now.
No.
So, okay. Well, I'm glad that you still love your first kids than as much as your grandkids, because my mom has thrown in the towel on me, and it's I don't know, it's a sad moment.
Well, and it's a totally different feeling being a grandparent than it is being a parent. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but no, I'm still really close to the boys, and we still talk often and do stuff. In fact, I've got second generation entrepreneurs starting up. So,
wow. How many
yes,
kids do you have?
I have three boys.
Okay. How old are they?
27, 24, and 22.
And you remember their names too? No, I'm just kidding.
I do.
How many grandkids do you have?
The 24-year-old gets mad because I tell everybody he's 25. So I don't know why, but yeah.
Well, obviously he doesn't rent cars because, you get that discount when you start renting cars. That's what the 25th year is good for.
Yeah, yeah.
As you were growing those three boys, you had a different business than you are in now. How is it kind of raising kids and owning a business at the same time?
Well, and that's, I think, the main reason why I thought it would be easier having my kids and having my own business, because everybody tells you that you're your own boss. Which in some aspects it was easier than having a regular 9-to-5 job. But it was also harder because I had to purposefully make time to be there for the kids and to do my mom duties. Whereas now, since everybody's grown, I can binge on Obsession at times. So where I couldn't before.
Do you think most people do a lot of busy work though, and that's why maybe you thought it would be easier for you, so you can you were saying you thought it'd be easier because you could, having a business, raising kids, you'd be able to do things on your own time. I think that a lot of people tend to do a lot of busy work or say yes to a lot of things that don't necessarily move the needle forward. And instead of, working, the 4 hours a day that maybe you need to, they work 12 hours, but only get 3 or 4 hours worth of work out of it. And did you find that when you were having and raising your kids with the business that you were able to really focus and pinpoint in getting work done when you needed to?
Yes, I could focus and pinpoint, but I also, in the early stages, so I've been an entrepreneur since 1992, and that's been in different capacities in different businesses throughout the years. I've also found being a younger entrepreneur, you have totally different ideas on what is supposed to be done and what should be done and what is actually reality in it. And I think, so having my kids did a couple of things. One, it helped me focus a little bit more, even though I did more spinning of my wheels in the younger years. It did help me focus, but I still got bogged down with that busy work, trying to do things or attempting projects that really weren't in line with my vision, my goal, or my why.
Your realities, you said when you were a younger entrepreneur, you had different realities. Give me an example.
My realities were, I thought that I had to be in every newspaper and on all the TV, and I had to be in radio, and I had to spend all this money in marketing to actually make a living at it. And as I get older, I find that, yeah, you have to spend some money, but it's more targeted. You've got to be more strategic with it. And just because you have a lot out there doesn't mean it's valuable. Um, so it's more purposeful, I
Yeah,
guess,
that's very
now than
powerful.
it was.
I always, as a guy who has been able to create a lot of press and get a lot of people press too, I've always told people press isn't a business model. It's what you do after you get that thing that's important. And I think you're
Yeah.
kind of saying that too, is where, I had to spend all this money to be seen, but no one's buying from me that point. I have to make sure that the other pieces are in line. How did you start targeting your customers with that press though? Like how did you start understanding that maybe you had a specific client that you didn't know before that started calling you?
Actually, it was, I've had a few business coaches and mentors throughout the years. And for me, those are extremely valuable. They're typically, for me, they've been people that have been there, done that. Um, so they helped me not only recommending resources to books to read, things like that, but they also helped me to better define who I was, what my business was, and what I wanted to accomplish with my business. And I think that in and of itself really kind of um, helped me be more direct with who I was trying to market to.
I think that's powerful. You said something that I love to talk about, and I say it in maybe a little different way, but you don't go to your dentist and ask them an accounting question, right? But
Right.
for some reason in business, because people watch Shark Tank or read a business book, they feel like they have the knowledge to do it. And we were talking with Nick Friedman, episode 55. He started College Hunks Hauling Junk and Moving. I don't know if you've heard about them.
Oh yeah.
Crazy business. Really, really interesting. But he goes, there's a difference between opinion advice and wisdom advice. So opinion advice is kind of those people who watch Shark Tank, and there's people who actually have been there and done that. That's more of the wisdom advice. Why is wisdom advice so important in growing your business?
Um, how long do you have? Wisdom advice. It's the whole been there, done that. It's so when I help, like right now, I'm helping my son build his business. It's more of, okay, this is what has worked for me in the past, and this has not. So it's more of trying to overcome certain obstacles or certain ways of thinking that media, blog posts, your friends and family are trying to push onto you. It's getting past all of that and actually getting to what works and what doesn't work. Um, and I say that because what works for somebody may not work for another person, but at least you're kind of um, having the what's the word I'm looking for?
Context?
Yeah, context, but also it's making less mistakes to get there.
Sure.
Um, I can't tell you how many times I decided that doing this customer retention program would be like the best thing because I read it in a book. And then I went and and I tried it without talking to my mentor. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I just wasted all that time and money and energy and personnel resources. And it's like, I could have avoided all of that if I would have talked to my business coach or mentor, and they've been like, yeah, that's not how the real world works.
Why do you
So
think we don't do that, right? So I think we pay these people to do a service for us, whether it's our coaches, our mentors, our white collar service providers, your accountants, your lawyers. Why don't we talk to them and ask them for advice on things that they're best at? Instead, we kind of just go straight towards it.
um speaking from my personal experience, um I honestly didn't think that they would be open to helping me. So even my accountant and business attorney, I thought that I'd always have to pay for advice. Um, but I learned with the relationship. that I could easily shoot them an email or give them a really quick phone call and ask them a question, and I didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
I just had to ask. So for me, it's been more of I'm afraid that they wouldn't want to give me that help or advice. And it's been a journey to figure out that a lot of times all I have to do is ask. Um, and even for my customers, all I have to do is ask if I need something or I want something from them. The worst thing that's going to happen is they say no. So, yeah.
I find that by just asking, raising your hand is insanely important in business. And so we're taught, I think, and you probably agree with this, to say no a lot so that you can, not waste time on certain things. But there are times when communication is really important. Just asking that question is really important. But then maybe just raising your hand when a scenario pops up that maybe you don't know exactly what's going to happen with it. But by raising your hand, you can get more clarity. You can go deeper into it. And so I love that. Just ask. My mom, back to my mom, I find that friends and family can oftentimes give the worst advice because they want you to succeed, right?
Yes.
So how do you, and my mom's never, well, maybe she was a business owner like way back when, but she doesn't think like that at all anymore. But how do you take your mom out of this, you being a mom out of this scenario, and give practical kind of wisdom to your son who's now started a business, and not just be the mom in there? Because I think moms want their kids to succeed, and so they want the best for them. So how do you make sure that you're giving the best kind of answers and not just giving the mom answer?
Um, I usually preface it with "I love you," and say, "Now." I'd say,
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I love you. Have you considered what would be another? I try to get him to think about it himself and to come up with the answer himself, because it's only meaningful if it really honestly comes from you, the business owner. Um, but we've had those intense discussions, and they don't always go very well. But I get a text the next day on, that was really a great idea, or I had this idea. What do you think about it? So, what it did for our relationship is it just really spurred him to think deeper into the problem or think deeper into what he feels the solution would be.
Love it. Trifecta Consulting, what is that?
Trifecta Consulting is the organic business of me. And it's probably one of the best things that's ever come out of my entrepreneurship. It has zero marketing. It is literally based on all of my relationships throughout the years and referrals from those relationships. Um, and it's so enjoyable. I guess and it does it because of my professional career as an entrepreneur. My background's very diverse. And that's what the consulting looks like. And it's fun. It's not work anymore. So,
It's always
yeah.
good. So how do you get referrals from relationships if you're not marketing?
I ask for them, and then it's a lot of results dependent. So I love small business, absolutely love it because that's where I've come from. And my industry is health and wellness. So when I help somebody who's developing a new clinic or having to deal with staffing issues or having to do with some accounting and bookkeeping woes or training or whatever, and they get a positive outcome from it, the first thing they end up doing is talking to everybody else at their networking and stuff. I don't have to go to the chamber; they're doing it for me at the chamber. So, yeah.
It's always great when someone's doing it for you. We're talking with Lisa McNeil, Trifecta Consulting, episode 70 of the 1004 show. Back in 2016, something traumatic happened in your life and everything changed. What happened?
Yes. I was involved in a car accident. Somebody at the time, I was executive director of my health and wellness clinic, my rehab clinic, Momentum. And somebody T-boned me and my husband on the passenger side and blew out my right shoulder, which means I could no longer function as a clinician. A year and a half worth of rehab, I was able to go back to work as a body worker clinician, but my clinic was gone. So in that amount of time.
Do you think that something like that, obviously this one is physical, but there's a huge emotional side of it too. Do you feel like when that T-bone happened, it was similar to something else that maybe had happened to you in business before, where you lost a big client or something crazy dramatic happened where you could learn how to get through that from years past?
Oh, yeah. Being an entrepreneur, being a small business owner, there's so many highs, but there's so many lows. I tell my son, I said, there's days where you feel like you're going to take on the world and everything's going to be conquered. And I said, and then there's other days you're sitting in the corner, fetal position, crying. It's not.
We're not laughing when those days happen.
When those days happen. Losing the clinic, I lost the clinic because of the car accident. And in 2008, because of the economy, I lost my bookkeeping and accounting business. And you end up, it's a period of mourning. And when I've lost a big account or the prospect of an account, it's mourning. It's really a time of grieving because of all the energy that you've put forth to either get that client or build that business or that account. And I think one of the best things is just to allow yourself that time to grieve. Don't stay in it, but allow yourself to grieve, but then look at the possibilities that can come out of it. And for me, it was absolutely devastating to lose my clinic, but sitting here on the verge of 2018, I have some absolutely amazing projects that are going to be coming into fruition in 2018 that I never could have been a part of if I had the clinic. And I'm getting goosebumps because I try my best to embrace the change. Because there's really honestly nothing I can do about it. That car accident was totally out of my control. And I just look for any good that can come out of whatever happened. So that's what I do.
It's powerful. I might use the wrong words here, but how do you pull the plug on a business? Sounds like you've done it twice now, in 2008 and then in 2016. When you closed that business, were they quick and easy decisions? Were they months worth of, what's the whole process when that happened?
So most recently, the closing of Momentum, it was probably a good 6 months that it took for me to close it. I think the hardest part was sitting down with my staff and then sending out that email to my clients. Everybody knew about the car accident, and I'm a very transparent person, and they knew about the struggles that were going on with the clinic. So I don't think that it was a surprise, but it was just, I guess the best way of putting it is communication. And that communication saved my professional relationships. It saved my relationships with my clients, which I was able to pick up back again when I was released to go back to work. So it's the communication aspect of it.
Communication saves everything.
It does.
I mean, that's powerful. I'd invested in a handful of businesses through a fund that I had started, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, and it was 3 separate funds, and we were investing in basically. And one of those was 4 different businesses. And about 18 months ago, basically closed it. And we had lost a bunch of money to a bunch of people. And I remember I was able to write a couple of little checks to all the investors. But we had lost, I don't know, 95% of the total fund. And it was not fun. And I remember I was writing these handwritten cards to the investors with the check, basically saying, "Thanks for taking a bet on me. Sorry it didn't work." And I literally just start bawling, crying, because like you get this sense of failure. And even though they were all actually okay with it, I I hated it, and it was really really painful. And there's just something about writing something down and thanking someone, but getting it all out, that was really powerful. And like you said, communication saves everything. One of my
Well, and I have to say, I mean, that was probably the hardest phone call I had to make was to um, the institution that lent me money, because now I'm sitting here unable to pay back because they had this faith in me. They had faith in my ideas and my plans, and that was probably the hardest call to make. And he and his partners were very gracious, and it was a huge blessing in the midst of all of that turmoil and loss to have that graciousness. So yeah, you're 100% right that it was, yeah,
but
it was hard making that phone call and that contact, but it was also very a big blessing to have the reaction that I did too.
and it feels good after we do it, because it's that sense of relief. One of my favorite quotes is, "Everything happens for a reason," and it sounds like you kind of live by that lifestyle as well. Knowing that really crappy days have happened, how often do you reflect back on those and be like, "Look, I've been able to get through this. Anything is possible"?
Um, I don't. I reflect back on it in the aspect of, wow, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be able to go through. I wouldn't be able to go through this, or I wouldn't have this opportunity. So I look at it with um, pride's not the right word. I look at it with gratitude, I think. Um, and just press forward from it. I try not to spend too much time in the past other than learning from whatever mistakes I made. But yeah.
Very, very, very powerful stuff. I'm going to ask you a series of quicker questions that hopefully won't be as emotional, or maybe they are. Um, what's your favorite day of the week?
My favorite day of the week. I think Saturday.
Why?
Um, because I am purposeful not to work on Saturday. It's the day my husband doesn't work. And it's the day that we just lay in bed and do nothing till about 9 o'clock in the morning.
9 o'clock in the morning. There you go.
It's like, yeah, I don't do anything that I don't want to do on Saturday.
What's something on your bucket list, or something that you want to do that you haven't done yet in life?
In life. I think in life, I think I want to spend 2 months abroad. I want to spend 2 months in Europe.
How do you start doing that?
Right now we're saving money.
Okay, that's a good first start.
And just making the time is what it's going to end up being.
Very cool.
It's purposeful in making the time.
I think a lot of people have bucket lists, but they don't actually have plans to get to them. And I think it sounds like you're getting closer to that. Yeah. What's a pet peeve of yours?
The greeting cards at Walmart when they're not in order and they're all mixed up.
All right, there's a first for that.
Okay, that's the bookkeeping and accounting portion of me. All my little ducks in a row. So I'll sit there and actually for the next 10 minutes arrange the greeting cards so that they're all.
And Walmart thanks you for that. They're gonna send you a check in the mail. What made you cry last?
Finding out I was going to be a grandma for the second time.
What different types of tears? Tears of joy.
Yes.
Being a grandma, how has that changed you as an entrepreneur?
Being a grandma, how has that changed me as being an entrepreneur? I think Actually, I don't know.
So before you said that when you were raising kids, you thought owning a business, being an entrepreneur was going to be easier. Do you like think about risk in different ways now because of it? Is it the same? It doesn't matter. Um,
It really doesn't matter. My energy and mm, I hate to say it, but some of my money goes into different places because instead of building up um, me, because I've been at this for so long, I'm now investing in my granddaughter's education and putting money away. So if she wants to be that entrepreneur, that she actually has the ability to do it instead of starting everything from scratch. And that's kind of, I guess, I guess it's thinking more of if my grandchildren want to go down the road that I did, how can I make it easier? And I think that's trying to be purposeful again in that planning in my mind and in my bank account.
it's great. I hope that when I have kids, my mom and dad start doing that too. No, that's funny. Where do you live?
I live in Sussex, Wisconsin.
Packers fan?
No.
No. Do you know sports or not the Packers?
I am a Wisconsin transplant, so I'm actually originally from Arizona.
Okay.
So yeah, and it's horrible to say, but I like the Chargers and I like the Rockies and the Diamondbacks. So
Well, there
yeah.
you go. What's something about you that we haven't talked about that you think is important for that you've learned in life that you think people could get value from or purpose from?
Um. hmm, What I've learned in life. One step in front of the other. Honestly, it's too easy to get bogged down in details and emotions. In order for anything to happen, you have to continue moving forward. And that's in life, in business, in everything. You can't stay in one place.
Love it. Lisa McNeil, Trifecta Consulting, episode 70 of the 1004 show. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode of the 1004 show. I want to tell you guys about something that we just released that we're super passionate about. It's called Inbox. It's a series of scenarios that business owners have inevitably had to go through. And what do they do when they go through these? Stuff like what happens when you get a bad review on social media? Or more deadly, what do you do when a customer tells you that they can't pay you for the work that you've done? Check it out in the show notes or at startwithhatch.com/inbox.